You want peace? Hand over the house. My in-laws demanded, standing at our doorway with a gang glaring behind them. They thought threats and fear would make my husband and me give in. But they didn't know the truth about my past. They had no idea they'd chosen the wrong woman to scare. Can you imagine opening your front door to your own in-laws, not for a friendly visit, but to be strong-armed by 3 burly thugs, demanding your home? My name is Cassie Miller, and that's exactly what happened to me. They thought I was just a quiet high school counselor, but what they didn't know about my past was about to blow up in their faces and change everything. Story begins. I'm 34 years old, and 5 years ago, my life was beautifully predictable. I met Nathan at a charity auction. He was this tall, kind, slightly disheveled architectural engineer, and there was just something about him, a gentle confidence, that drew me in. We fell in love quickly, got married, and I settled into my role as a high school guidance counselor. It was a deliberate choice, a peaceful contrast to the life I'd left behind, and I loved helping teenagers. It gave us the stability I craved. Nathan often said his grandma Gloria would have loved me. She'd raised him for years while his parents, Martha and Gerald, were busy building their import business. When Gloria passed away, just 6 months after our wedding, we were heartbroken. But what truly shocked us was her will. She left us her beautiful Victorian home in the historic district. Nathan whispered in disbelief, "This is ours." It wasn't just any house. Built in the 1890s, it had a wraparound porch and ancient oak trees, lovingly maintained. Gloria bought it in the 70s when the neighborhood was still affordable, and now? It was worth a fortune. For Nathan, every room held a memory, catching fireflies in the backyard, baking cookies in the kitchen. Soon, it held memories for us too. We spent weekends stripping wallpaper, painting, updating the kitchen while honoring its charm. It felt like Gloria's spirit approved. But Nathan's parents? They did not approve. Martha and Gerald had always been cold towards me. Martha judged my single mom upbringing and state university education. Gerald was even more direct, asking if I knew Nathan used to date a girl whose dad owned half the commercial real estate downtown. They were disappointed in Nathan too, for choosing a progressive architecture firm over the family import business. "You have an obligation to the family legacy," Gerald would lecture, always ending with Martha's passive-aggressive comments about ungrateful children. After Gloria's will, their coldness turned into outright hostility. "She should have left it to us," I overheard Martha telling a relative at the funeral reception. "What do they know about maintaining a historic property?" Then, things got darker. Nathan's sister, Elaine, called us, genuinely worried. "Dad's company is in serious trouble," she confided. "They lost their biggest supplier, and there's talk of bankruptcy." Yet, Martha and Gerald maintained their lavish lifestyle, hosting parties, wearing designer clothes, buying new luxury cars. But cracks were showing. Nathan's cousin Stephen whispered about Gerald's high-stakes poker games. He's in deep with some sketchy characters. We saw their desperation firsthand at a family dinner. Gerald drank too much, slurring, "That house is wasted on you too." No children to fill it. No appreciation for its value. Martha hushed him, but his words, and the calculating look in his eyes, chilled me. "They're just bitter," Nathan assured me on the drive home. But my old instincts, long dormant, were stirring. I started watching them. And those instincts, terrifyingly, were about to be proven right. It was a Sunday afternoon. Nathan and I were planning garden renovations when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Martha's perfect silver hair, Gerald's imposing figure. "They didn't mention they were coming," Nathan said, surprised, opening the door. His warm greeting died on his lips. Behind his parents stood 3 burly men. Martha, despite the mild weather, wore a designer trench coat, her eyes hard. Gerald squared his shoulders. "We need to talk," Gerald said, pushing past Nathan into our foyer without an invitation. Martha followed, her heels clicking on our hardwood floors. The 3 men entered last, fanning out in our entryway. My alarm bells were screaming. "This is Marcus," Gerald gestured to a tall man with a scar. "And Devin and Troy." Devin was muscled, Troy leaner with calculating eyes scanning our home. "What's going on, Dad?" Nathan asked, pulling me closer. We've come to resolve the house situation. Martha's voice was clipped, businesslike. Gerald pulled an envelope from his jacket. These are papers transferring ownership of this house to us. Sign them today, and we'll allow you to stay as tenants for 3 months. What? Nathan's voice rose in disbelief. This is our house. Grandma Gloria left it to us legally. Don't be naive, Gerald snapped. The business is in trouble. We need liquid assets. This house is the answer. You didn't earn it. You didn't pay for it. You just got lucky. I'm not signing anything, Nathan said firmly, his jaw set. This is our home. Martha's expression hardened. You don't understand the situation, Nathan. Your father has obligations that must be met. If they aren't, there could be consequences. Are you threatening us? I asked, finding my voice. Gerald's eyes slid to the 3 men. I'm simply saying that accidents happen when debts aren't paid. Homes catch fire. Cars malfunction. People get hurt. Get out. Nathan roared, shaking with anger. Get out of our house right now. Think carefully about this, Gerald said, placing the envelope on our side table. You have 24 hours to make the right decision. They left without another word, the 3 men following them out to a black SUV parked at the curb. Nathan immediately locked the door, leaning against it, his face ghostly pale. I can't believe this is happening, he whispered. My own parents. He pulled out his phone, dialing his father. I could hear Gerald's voice, cold and distant. Have you come to your senses? Dad, this is insane. You can't just demand our house and threaten us. What's really going on? Let me help you figure out another solution. There is no other solution. The house is worth over $1 million. That solves our problem. Your problem is deciding whether your home is worth more than your safety. You can't mean that. You're my father. Mom wouldn't let you do this. Your mother agrees completely. This is business, Nathan. Nothing personal. Nothing personal? You're threatening your own son. 24 hours, Gerald said, and the line went dead. Nathan stared at his phone in disbelief. He hung up on me. My own father just threatened us and hung up on me. We moved to the kitchen where Nathan collapsed into a chair, his hands shaking. I made him tea, my mind already calculating risks. I don't understand, he said, hollow-voiced. How could they bring criminals into our home and threaten us? I think your father is in deeper trouble than we realized, I said carefully. Those men weren't just random thugs. They moved like professionals. Nathan looked up sharply. How would you know that? I hesitated. Just an observation. We need to take this seriously. Those weren't idle threats. Should we call the police? Nathan asked. Not yet, I said, surprising myself. We don't have proof, just implications. And if your father is mixed up with dangerous people, escalating too quickly could make things worse. So, what do we do? First, we increase security. New locks tonight. Cameras tomorrow. I know someone who can install them quickly. I was already reviewing the house's vulnerabilities. I should try to talk to my mother alone, Nathan suggested. Maybe she'll be reasonable. I nodded, though I doubted it. The cold determination in Martha's eyes told me everything. We'll figure this out, I assured him, squeezing his hand. They picked the wrong house to target. Nathan gave me a weak smile, not understanding the full meaning. He couldn't know that the skills I'd spent years trying to bury were reawakening. My mind was already mapping out defensive strategies. For now, I let him believe we were just a normal couple. But if Gerald pushed us further, they would discover exactly why they'd picked the wrong target. 3 days later, Nathan woke me at 6 a.m., his voice tight. They slashed my tires. In the driveway, his car sat lopsided, all 4 tires flat, clearly knife cuts. The driver's side door was deeply keyed. Under the wiper, a note. This is just the beginning. Reconsider our offer. We're calling the police, I said firmly, all hesitation gone. This was documented damage, an implicit threat. Officer Ryan Davis arrived, a methodical man I appreciated. He documented everything, took the note, and asked the right questions. Any security cameras? He asked. Being installed tomorrow, I told him. We've had verbal threats. From whom? He asked. Nathan hesitated, then sighed. My parents. They want us to sign over the house. Officer Davis frowned. And you believe they're responsible for this vandalism? They came with 3 men 3 days ago. My father implied accidents could happen. The officer made notes. I'll file the report, but without witnesses or video, it's hard to prove. We understand, I said. We just want it on record. He suggested a restraining order and urged us to install the cameras quickly. I drove Nathan to work after arranging for his car to be towed. He was quiet, his face drawn. I'll pick you up at 5, I told him. Call me if anything happens. Thanks, Cassie, he said, kissing me. I don't know what I'd do without you. I spent the morning calling security companies, arranging expedited camera installation and a monitored alarm system. I also withdrew cash from our emergency fund. At 2:30, Nathan called. My father showed up at the office, he said, shaking with anger and embarrassment. He made a scene, shouting I was ungrateful and betraying the family. Are you okay? No. Amanda, my boss, called me in. She's concerned this family drama might affect client relationships. What did you tell her? The truth. That my parents are trying to force us to sign over our house, using intimidation. She was sympathetic but warned me. Did your father leave? Security escorted him out, but not before he told half the office I was stealing family property and would regret my choices. By the time I picked Nathan up, word had spread. Colleagues gave him sympathetic looks. Everyone's talking about it, he said. Trevor even asked if I was having mob problems because of the guys who were with my dad. It'll blow over, I said, though I wasn't so sure. Gerald was desperate. That evening, Nathan's phone rang continuously. First, Elaine, worried. Nate, what's happening? Dad came home raging about you and the house. Nathan explained. Oh God, Elaine breathed. I knew they had money troubles, but not this far. Dad was on the phone earlier with someone, and he sounded desperate. He kept saying he'd get the money one way or another. Be careful, Nate. The next call was less supportive. Nathan's brother, Richard, who worked for their father, was coldly angry. You're going to destroy this family. The business is on the brink, and you're sitting in $1 million house you did nothing to earn. That house was Grandma's gift to us, not a family asset. Nathan argued. And threatening us isn't going to change that. You always were selfish, Richard spat. When this company goes under and 30 employees lose their jobs, that's on you. And don't think this ends with a few scratches on your precious car. Dad has connections you don't want to mess with. Nathan ended the call, his hands shaking. My own family, he whispered. My own brother threatening me now. I sat beside him, holding his hand. We'll get through this. The security system will be installed tomorrow, and I've spoken to a lawyer. I keep thinking this can't be real, Nathan said. That I'll wake up and my parents will be the people I thought they were. I didn't know how to tell him that people often aren't who we believe them to be. That sometimes the masks they wear are so convincing that when they slip, the reality is unrecognizable. I'd learned that lesson years ago. Nathan was learning it now, painfully. Try to get some sleep, I said gently. I'll stay up and keep watch tonight. You can't stay up all night, he protested. Trust me, I smiled. I've had practice. He didn't question what I meant. He was too exhausted. As he fell into a troubled sleep, I positioned myself near the window, ready for a long night. The security installation couldn't come soon enough. And soon, I would need to decide how much of my past to reveal to Nathan, because if things escalated, I would need to employ skills I'd hoped never to use again. The week after the vandalism brought a tense, eerie quiet. Too quiet. Nathan's parents made no contact. The men didn't return. But instead of relief, I felt dread. This wasn't a retreat. It was tactical patience. On Friday afternoon, alone in our kitchen, I made a decision. Once I took this step, there would be no going back to the life I'd carefully constructed. I dialed a number I hadn't used in 5 years. Harris, a familiar voice answered. Amanda, it's Cassie Miller. Formerly Cassandra Reynolds. There was a pause. Holy *T Reynolds. I thought you fell off the face of the earth. I needed a clean break, I explained. But now I need your help. Detective Amanda Harris had been my closest colleague at the Bureau. We'd worked together on the Donovan case, the one that led to my departure from the FBI. You in trouble? She asked, her tone immediately professional. My husband's family is. His father's gotten involved with some dangerous people. They're trying to force us to sign over our house, and I'm concerned about escalation. I explained everything, using the precise, concise language of my former profession. It felt strange how easily I slipped back into that mindset. I can run background on these 3 men, Amanda offered. And check if Gerald Miller has known associations in our database. I'd appreciate that. And Amanda, my husband, doesn't know about my past. None of it, she sounded surprised. He thinks I've always been a high school counselor who moved here for a fresh start. Amanda whistled low. That's quite a cover story. You planning to tell him now? I don't see how I can avoid it. Not if I'm going to protect him properly. After the call, I spent the afternoon preparing. I retrieved a locked box from the back of our closet. Inside, a small Glock 43, properly registered but unfired in years. And credentials, case notes, photographs I'd kept as insurance despite protocol. When Nathan came home, I had dinner waiting, a bottle of his favorite wine open. What's the occasion? He asked, surprised by the formal setting. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady. And you might want some wine for this. We ate in silence, Nathan sensing the gravity. When we finished, I took a deep breath. Nathan, there's something important about me I haven't told you. Something that changes how we need to handle your parents. He set down his wine glass, giving me his full attention. What is it? Before I became a school counselor, I had a different career. I paused, meeting his eyes directly. I was an FBI agent specializing in organized crime investigations. Nathan stared, his expression frozen between disbelief and confusion. You were what? An FBI agent. For 8 years. I left the bureau 5 years ago, just before we met. That's not possible, he stammered. You're a counselor. You have a degree in psychology. My undergraduate degree is in psychology. My graduate credentials were partly established as cover after I left the bureau. I did complete legitimate counseling training, but my history was adjusted. I opened the locked box and showed him my old credentials. I was part of an organized crime task force. My last case involved bringing down the Donovan family in Boston. Racketeering, human trafficking. Nathan picked up my old ID card, staring at the photo of me with shorter hair, a more severe expression. Why didn't you tell me? We've been married for 4 years. The Donovan case ended badly. A source was compromised. 2 agents died. I received threats against my family. I swallowed hard. I requested a new identity and location. Not witness protection, exactly, but a bureau-supported fresh start. Telling anyone about my past could have created risk. Even your husband? His voice held hurt. Especially my husband. The less you knew, the safer you were. I reached for his hand. And after a while, I convinced myself it was better this way. I wanted to be Cassie Miller, school counselor. I wanted to leave Cassandra Reynolds behind. Nathan withdrew his hand, standing to pace the kitchen. So, for our entire relationship, you've been lying to me about something fundamental. I've never lied about who I am as a person, I said quietly. My feelings for you, my values, the life we've built? That's all real. I just couldn't tell you about my professional past. And you're telling me now because of my parents? Because of the threats. I nodded. I have training and connections that can help us. The men your father brought here, the tactics they're using. I recognize the patterns. This isn't just desperate family drama, Nathan. Your father has likely gotten involved with organized crime figures. Nathan sank back into his chair. This is insane. My straight-laced, country club father involved with criminals. My wife, a former FBI agent. I feel like I'm in some bizarre movie. I know it's a lot to process, I acknowledged. But we don't have the luxury of time. Your parents' desperation is escalating. And if your father owes money to the wrong people, they won't stop at vandalism. What exactly are you suggesting? First, I've asked a former colleague to run background checks on those men. Second, we document everything and build our legal case. Third, we prepare for worst-case scenarios. Like what? Like a more aggressive attempt to force us out or harm us. I hesitated. Nathan, I know how these situations typically evolve. The pattern suggests we haven't seen their worst yet. Nathan was silent for a long moment, staring at my old badge. Finally, he looked up, his eyes troubled, but clear. "I'm angry that you kept this from me," he said quietly. "I thought we didn't have secrets. But right now, we have more immediate problems." He took a deep breath. "Tell me what we need to do." Relief washed through me, though I knew this conversation was far from over. The hurt in his eyes told me we'd revisit this betrayal of trust many times. "Thank you for understanding," I said softly. "I don't understand, not fully," he admitted. "But I trust you. Even now, I trust that you had reasons. And honestly, having an FBI agent for a wife might be exactly what we need right now." I gave him a small smile. Former FBI agent. But some skills you never lose. As I began outlining our security plan, I watched Nathan struggle to reconcile the woman he'd married with this new revelation. It would take time, but time was the one thing we might not have. Gerald and his associates wouldn't wait. And I was right. The next morning brought evidence that the situation was about to get much worse. We returned from grocery shopping on Saturday to find our front door slightly ajar. Nathan moved to enter, but I grabbed his arm, pulling him back to the car. "Call the police," I instructed, my voice low and urgent. "Report a break-in. Stay in the car and lock the doors." "Where are you going?" he asked as I reached into my purse. "Cassie, no," he protested. "If someone's in there, trust my training," I said firmly, revealing my Glock. "Make the call now." I approached the house cautiously, using techniques that had once been second nature. Our new security system should have alerted us, but a quick glance at the control panel showed it had been disabled. Professional work. Room by room, I cleared our home, finding it empty, but thoroughly ransacked. In the office, filing cabinets hung open, papers scattered. The safe behind the bookshelf was open and empty, family jewelry, emergency cash, gone. But it was the targeted nature of the search that confirmed my suspicions. Specific documents were missing: the house deed, insurance papers, our IDs. This wasn't a random burglary. It was a focused attempt to gather information and valuables. In the bedroom, a message had been spray-painted across our wall: "Next time you'll be home." I heard sirens approaching and holstered my weapon before the police arrived. Officer Davis was among them, his expression grim. "You're lucky you weren't home," he commented. "It wasn't luck," I replied. They knew our routine. They waited. Nathan stood in our bedroom doorway, pale. "They took the deed to the house," he said. "And Grandma Gloria's jewelry." "Check your security footage," Officer Davis suggested. The company should have cloud backup. He was right. Technicians retrieved footage showing Troy and Devin breaking in through our back door, their movements methodical. The timestamp showed they'd entered just 20 minutes after we left. "I recognize them," Officer Davis said, studying the footage. "They're known associates of Frank Wilson, small-time enforcer for bigger operations." "Frank Wilson," I repeated, filing the name away. After the police left, Nathan and I began cleaning up. As we worked, his phone rang. It was Richard. "Enjoying your weekend?" his brother asked, smug. "I hear you had some unexpected visitors." Nathan's knuckles whitened. "Did you know they were going to break into our home?" Let's just say I wasn't surprised. Dad's patience is running out. "Nathan, the offer still stands. Sign over the house and this all goes away. Tell Dad he's just added breaking and entering, theft, and criminal threats to his list of problems," Nathan snapped, hanging up. "They're getting bolder," I observed, sweeping broken glass from a deliberately torn wedding photo. "What's our next move?" Nathan asked, his jaw set. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Amanda: "Call me. Found connection between Gerald Miller and Frank Wilson. Not good. First, we finished securing the house," I said. "Then I need to make a call." The next morning, as we were replacing locks for the second time, I spotted a familiar SUV parked down the street. "Nathan, go inside," I said calmly. "We have company." "What? Who?" "Marcus, the tall one. He's watching the house." Nathan's face hardened. "I'm calling the police." "Not yet," I said. "Let me handle this." Against Nathan's protests, I walked to my car and drove to the grocery store. As expected, the black SUV followed. In the parking lot, I deliberately parked in a secluded corner and waited. Marcus approached my car, his confidence evident. He clearly didn't view me as a threat. "Mrs. Miller," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Funny running into you here. Is it?" I asked coolly. "Seems like you've been running into me quite deliberately." He chuckled. "Just keeping an eye on a valuable property. Your father-in-law is very concerned about his investment." "It's not his investment," I replied. "And you can tell him and Frank Wilson that harassment and breaking and entering are serious charges." A flicker of surprise crossed his face at Wilson's name. "I don't know what you're talking about, lady, but accidents happen to nice houses like yours. Electrical fires, gas leaks, tragic things, especially when the owners are inside." I stepped out of the car, watching his posture change as he reassessed me. "Let me be very clear," I said, my voice dropping. "I know exactly who you are and who you work for. Your presence at my property has been documented and reported. If anything happens to our house or to us, the evidence leads directly to you, to Wilson, and to Gerald Miller." "You threatening me?" he asked, his amusement fading. "No. I'm informing you of facts. Now, here's another fact. I'm not the defenseless housewife you think I am. So the next time you or your friends come to my property uninvited, be prepared for consequences." I held his gaze steadily until uncertainty crept into his expression. People like Marcus relied on intimidating the vulnerable. When that dynamic shifted, they often retreated. "Just delivering a message," he finally said, stepping back. "Mr. Miller wants this resolved by Monday, one way or another." "Duly noted," I replied, getting back into my car. "I have a message too. Tell Frank Wilson to research who he's dealing with." The name Cassandra Reynolds might interest him. I drove away, watching in my rearview mirror as Marcus stood frozen. Using my former name was a calculated risk, but it might buy us time if Wilson was smart enough to do his homework. When I returned home, Nathan was frantic. "What were you thinking?" "Confronting him alone." "Creating uncertainty," I explained. "People like Marcus rely on fear. When you show none, it disrupts their playbook." "And if he had attacked you?" "He wouldn't. Not in public, not without orders." I touched Nathan's cheek gently. "Trust me to know how these people operate." The next day, we met with Rebecca Foster, a lawyer specializing in property disputes. Her office was in a converted Victorian, much like ours. "Based on what you've told me," Rebecca explained, "we have grounds for both criminal charges and civil action. The documented threats, the break-in, the vandalism, it's a clear pattern of harassment." "What about the house itself?" Nathan asked. "Could they have any legal claim?" "None whatsoever," Rebecca assured him. "I've reviewed the will. It's ironclad." "There's more," I added. "I have reason to believe Gerald Miller is in debt to Frank Wilson, a known criminal figure. The pressure to acquire our property likely stems from this." Rebecca's eyebrows rose. "That adds a serious dimension. If we can prove that, the criminal charges become much more severe." "My former colleague is gathering evidence on that front," I said, glancing at Nathan, who still tensed at references to my previous career. "I'll file for an emergency restraining order tomorrow," Rebecca said. "In the meantime, document everything. Avoid direct contact. Maintain your security." As we left, Nathan looked more resolute than he had in days. "I'm done being a victim in this," he said firmly. "It's time we fought back." I squeezed his hand. "That's exactly what we're going to do." Monday morning, I made calls while Nathan reluctantly went to work, escorted by a private security guard we'd hired. Amanda Harris was first. "What have you found?" "Your father-in-law is in deep," Amanda replied. "He owes Wilson nearly $800,000 from gambling debts and failed investments. Wilson's using the debt to launder money through the import business." That explained the desperation. "There's more," Amanda continued. "Wilson's operation is being investigated by the Boston field office as part of a larger RICO case. Your father-in-law is already on their radar. Can you connect me with the case agent?" "Already did. Jessica Parker is expecting your call. She's particularly interested in the three musclemen." Jessica Parker was sharp, no nonsense. We met at a coffee shop to maintain a low profile. "Your father-in-law picked the wrong partners," Jessica told me. "Wilson is under pressure. When people get desperate, They make mistakes, like sending the same men to threaten you and break into your home. Exactly, I noted. We've been building a case against Wilson for months, but lacked direct evidence of his enforcement tactics. Your situation provides that connection. What are you proposing? A coordinated approach. We continue our investigation while you maintain legal pressure. If Wilson or your father-in-law escalate, we'll have cause for more direct intervention. And if they come after us more aggressively in the meantime? Jessica smiled slightly. From what I remember of your work on the Donovan case, you're more than capable of handling yourself until backup arrives. With law enforcement formally in the loop, I turned to our home security. The system after the break-in was good, but not good enough. I called a specialist I'd worked with during my bureau days, a former Army Ranger named Michael Sullivan. Too many vulnerabilities, Michael concluded. I can upgrade you to a system that would make Fort Knox jealous. Do it, I authorized. Money is not the issue. Within 48 hours, our home had military-grade surveillance, reinforced entry points, motion sensors, and a panic room converted from our walk-in closet. That evening, I deliberately called a local jeweler and mentioned loudly that we'd be bringing in the remaining family jewelry for appraisal on Thursday. Then I called our insurance company to discuss increasing our coverage for irreplaceable items. What are you doing? Nathan asked. Creating bait, I explained. We need them to make another move, but this time on our terms. You're trying to get them to break in again? He asked, incredulous. In a controlled situation where we're prepared and can document everything. The next step, confronting Richard. Nathan's brother was Gerald's willing accomplice and potentially our weakest link for gathering evidence. We arranged to cross paths at a cousin's birthday at a downtown restaurant. The tension was palpable. Martha and Gerald weren't there, but Richard and his uncomfortable wife, Laura, were. I'm surprised you had the nerve to show up, Richard said, his voice low. We are not the ones who should be ashamed, Nathan replied calmly. How much do you know about Dad's arrangement with Frank Wilson? Richard's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. The FBI does, I interjected quietly. They're building a RICO case. Anyone involved could face serious charges. You're bluffing, Richard hissed, but his uncertainty was clear. We have the break-in on video, Nathan continued. Troy and Devin are identified. The question is, how involved are you? I discreetly activated the recording device in my purse. Richard glanced around nervously. Look, I didn't know they were going to break in. Dad just said he was putting pressure on you to be reasonable about the house. He needs it to pay off Wilson before things get worse. Worse? How? Nathan pressed. Wilson's people don't play games. Dad said either he gets the money from selling your house or they'll collect through the business and the family. So, you helped him threaten your own brother? Richard had the decency to look ashamed. I was protecting the business, our employees, our family name. By becoming criminals ourselves? Nathan said flatly. Did Mom know about the break-in too? Richard hesitated. She knows everything. She's the one who suggested using the house. As we left, the recording secured, Nathan was silent. Learning his mother's role had hit him hard. I need to talk to her, he finally said. One-on-one. Are you sure that's wise? No, but it's necessary. The next morning, Nathan met Martha at a cafe. I watched from my car across the street. Their conversation was intense. I couldn't hear the words, but Martha's face shifted, composed superiority, defensive anger, then fear, as Nathan revealed how much we knew. When she left 30 minutes later, her perfect posture had crumbled. She admitted everything, Nathan reported when he returned to my car. Dad owes Wilson for gambling debts and failed investments. They've been laundering money for Wilson's organization. When that wasn't enough, Wilson demanded direct compensation. Did she understand the legal jeopardy? She does now. I told her about the FBI investigation, the evidence we've gathered. She nearly collapsed when I mentioned RICO charges. Nathan stared out the window. She begged me to reconsider about the house. Said it was the only way out. And what did you tell her? That they chose this path, not us. That they threatened their son and daughter-in-law. That Grandma Gloria would be ashamed. His voice broke slightly. and that if they come near us again, we'll use every piece of evidence we have. As we drove home, I received a text from Jessica Parker, Wilson making moves. Be alert. Backup ready if needed. Our trap was set. We just had to wait for someone to take the bait. Thursday night, I sat in our newly converted panic room, monitoring the security feed. Nathan tried to sleep. The jeweler appointment I discussed was for Friday morning, making Thursday night the logical time for another break-in attempt. At 11:43, the perimeter alarm silently alerted me to movement in our backyard. 3 figures appeared on the infrared camera: Troy, Devin, and Marcus. Nathan, I called softly through the intercom. They're here, 3 of them at the back door. Activate Protocol 2. Nathan had insisted on being part of the plan. He quickly moved to his position upstairs, where he could monitor the second floor safely. I watched as Troy worked on our back door lock. Despite the upgraded security, they disabled the visible alarm panel and entered within minutes. Professional work, confirming my suspicions. Once they were inside, I activated the silent alarm that would alert our private security team and the police officers Jessica had stationed nearby. Then I sent the text message we'd arranged: canaries in the cage. The intruders moved methodically, heading directly for the study where we'd conspicuously placed a new safe. Inside, costume jewelry and fake documents for offshore accounts. Another piece of bait. There at the safe, Nathan whispered through the intercom. Stay in position, I reminded him. Help is 3 minutes out. As the men worked on cracking the safe, headlights swept across the front of the house. A car pulled up. We have new arrivals, I reported, switching to the front camera feed. It's your parents. Gerald and Martha approached the front door, looking anxious. Gerald unlocked it with a key they must have made during the previous break-in. Their coordination with the intruders was undeniable, captured clearly. Mom and Dad are inside, Nathan confirmed, his voice tight. They're talking to the men. I could see them on the interior cameras. Gerald gestured emphatically. Martha stood slightly behind him, her eyes starting nervously. Get the deed and anything valuable, Gerald instructed. We need to make this look like a regular burglary gone wrong. What about the occupants? Marcus asked. Gerald hesitated, then said, do what you have to do. Just make sure we get what we need. Martha gasped. Gerald, you said no one would get hurt. Be quiet. Gerald hissed. It's too late for cold feet. That was all the evidence we needed. I pressed the final alert button that would bring in the tactical team, then used the house intercom. Attention, this property is under surveillance. Law enforcement has been notified and is surrounding the premises. Put your hands up and remain where you are. Chaos erupted. Troy and Devin bolted for the back door while Marcus threw a weapon. Gerald stood frozen in shock. Martha began to cry. Federal agents. Nobody move. Shouts came from outside as tactical teams breached both entrances simultaneously. Within seconds, the house was swarming with FBI agents and police officers. Troy and Devin were tackled trying to flee. Marcus surrendered. Gerald and Martha were handcuffed and led outside. I emerged from the panic room to find Nathan at the top of the stairs, watching. It's over, I told him, taking his hand. We got everything on camera. Multiple felonies, conspiracy, clear evidence of their connection to Wilson. Nathan nodded silently, watching his parents placed in separate police cars. Jessica Parker approached us. Textbook operation, she commented. We've got Wilson in custody too. Picked him up simultaneously at his club downtown. His operation is finished. What happens now? Nathan asked. Formal charges will be filed tomorrow. The evidence is overwhelming. Your parents are looking at serious charges, but cooperation could reduce their sentences. As the law enforcement processed the scene, Nathan and I sat on our front porch. Blue and red lights flashed, illuminating our home. I never imagined it would end like this, Nathan said quietly, my parents in handcuffs. Their business exposed as a money laundering operation. I'm sorry it came to this, I said, meaning it. These were still his parents. Don't be. They made their choices. He squeezed my hand. And in a strange way, their threats brought out the truth about you. No more secrets between us. I nodded, realizing he was right. The crisis had forced me to reveal my past, but in doing so, removed the barrier I'd built. No more secrets, I agreed. Cassandra Reynolds and Cassie Miller are finally the same person. As dawn broke, the last police car pulled away. Our house stood quiet once more, but fundamentally changed. Like us, it had weathered a storm and remained standing, perhaps stronger for having been tested. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Gerald accepted a plea deal, 12 years in federal prison. Martha received 5 years probation. Their business was liquidated. Nathan testified at his father's preliminary hearing, his voice steady. My father betrayed everything he claimed of value. He was willing to put his own son at risk of physical harm. Gerald barely looked at him. Martha wept. The aftermath rippled through the family. Some relatives blamed Nathan. Others, like Elaine, stood by us. I always knew Dad had a dark side, she confided, but I never imagined he'd go this far. Richard eventually received a suspended sentence after cooperating, but his marriage didn't survive. Months later, he called Nathan. I was wrong, he said simply. I believed Dad's lies because I wanted to. It's going to take time, Rich, Nathan replied. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I know. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Nathan began therapy. The betrayal had shaken his understanding of his childhood. I keep wondering if I ever really knew them, he confessed. Were they always capable of this, or did desperation change them? People are complicated, I offered. They can compartmentalize, justify actions they'd normally condemn. Your father probably never saw himself as the villain. How do you reconcile loving someone with knowing what they're capable of? You don't necessarily, I said gently. You acknowledge both realities. The father who taught you to ride a bike also threatened your safety. Both versions are true. My own professional life changed too. After discussions with Nathan, I returned to law enforcement on a limited basis, taking a consulting position with the Boston field office, focusing on financial crimes. It allowed me to use my expertise while maintaining my counseling practice. Are you sure about this? Nathan asked. You left that world for a reason. I left because I needed to escape after a traumatic case, I explained. But using those skills again, to protect us, to fight back. I realized I've been hiding from a part of myself that doesn't need to stay hidden. He nodded thoughtfully. I like the idea of you not having to compartmentalize anymore. The whole Cassie is greater than the sum of her parts. Our home, the source of so much conflict, became a symbol of our resilience. We continued the renovations, creating a space that honored Gloria's legacy and our journey. I think Grandma would approve of the security upgrades, Nathan joked as we installed new garden lighting. She always did say better safe than sorry. 1 year later, on the anniversary of that night, we hosted a dinner for those who stood by us. Elaine, Amanda, Jessica, Rebecca. We raised glasses. To homes, Nathan said simply, not just the buildings, but the safety and truth they contain. And to picking the wrong targets, I added with a smile, taking his hand. As our friends laughed, I looked around. It wasn't just the physical structure that had been threatened, but the life and future we were building. In fighting for one, we had strengthened the other. Later that night, on the porch, Nathan put his arm around me. You know, when I first found out about your FBI past, I was shocked. But now, I can't imagine you any other way. Even with all the complications it brought. Especially with those, I murmured. Because that's what made you who you are. The complications, the contradictions, the strength that comes from overcoming them. I leaned my head against his shoulder, feeling truly at home in both our house and my identity for the first time in years. You were right that night, Nathan, he murmured. They really did pick the wrong target. Call to action, so, what do you all think? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who cross serious boundaries like this? What would you have done in Cassie and Nathan's situation? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.